We are living neath the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming on the other side.
Let's do that again.
We are living neath the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. I am alone and I am searching, hungering for answers in my time. I am balanced at the brink of wisdom. I'm impatient to receive a sign. I move forward with my senses open. Imperfection, it will be my crime. In humility, I will listen. We're all swimming to the other side. We are living neath the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. On this journey through the thoughts and feelings, binding intuition, my head, my heart, I am gathering the tools together. I'm preparing to do my part. All of those who have come before me band together and be my guide. Loving lessons that I will follow. We're all swimming to the other side. We are living neath this great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. When we get there, we'll discover all of the gifts we've been given to share have been with us since life's beginning, and we never noticed they were there. We can balance at the brink of wisdom, never recognizing that we've arrived. Loving spirits will live together. We're all swimming to the other side. We are living in the great big dipper. We are
Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Rose, and I am so excited to be one of your worship associates, co-leading with Beth Karow today. I would like to introduce Heather Grove, our accompanist this morning. This is her first time, and we're so glad to have you. Thank you so much. Now's the time where if you have a seat nearby and you want to raise your hand just to let the greeters know that there is a seat, that would be wonderful. We also have the chanting room, which we kind of call the quiet room now. So if there's an overflow need or you just want a quieter room, you can also watch the service in that room. So, and this is also a great time to remember to turn off our electronic devices. Let's pull those out, make sure. Thank you, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Community of the Mountains. Our land acknowledgement is offered today by Jean Gilligan.
We acknowledge that we are on the unceded land of the Nevada City Nisenan tribe, and in our commitment to be inclusive in the right relationship with the descendants of this area's indigenous people, we place a small basket of black oak acorns on the altar each week. We seek to help correct the erasure and exclusion from California history and to support their efforts to stabilize their people.
Come in, be among us, by Rev. Sherry Woodbury. To all those who are yearning for community, come in, be with us. Let me do that again. To all those who are yearning for community, come in, be among us. To all who are just getting started, to all who long to go deeper, to all with tender places needing care, come in, be among us. To the ones who have healed and have care to give, for those who are curious and hungry to learn, for those who know they have something to teach, come in, be among us. For those who are just beginning to suspect they might nurture others becoming, come in, be among us. To the young and the old, the innocent and the jaded, the fresh of mind and the deeply steeped, there is room here for each and every one. Come in, be among us. And we light our chalice this morning in the spirit of inclusion. May it serve as a beacon of hope, a guiding light for our journey together towards a beloved community. And part of our chalice light goes with and shines the way for our young ones as they head upstairs to their own gathering time at Kids Connection. Let's sing them on their way. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Good morning. It is good to be together here in our building, both in our sanctuary and the so-called quiet room. It's just a smaller room, in my opinion, at this point. Out there on Zoom, hi Zoom, and beyond, into the future on our YouTube channel. Wherever and whenever you are experiencing today's service, it is our hope that you find welcome and comfort here in our sanctuary. My name is Beth Karow, and I am so happy to be asking you to join me in welcoming Elizabeth Rose to her first Sunday service as worship associate. She and I have worked together to create this tapestry service where, in lieu of a sermon usually given by Reverend Kevin Tarsa, we've turned to members of our congregation to give their personal reflections on our monthly theme. This is the third of 4 Sunday services dedicated to deepening our understanding of inclusion, a theme actually chosen several months ago, if not a year or more ago, by the UUA and the National Soul Matters team. And as it happens, inclusion is very much in consideration all over our country right now in dramatic and sometimes disturbing ways. As we are being asked now, even more urgently, to recognize our unconscious biases and try to rewire our brains to welcome differences and think more inclusively, it helps me to remember the words of Verna Myers, speaking to the Cleveland Metropolitan Bar Association about overcoming prejudice, when she said, "Diversity is being invited to the party, inclusion is being asked to dance." I am not doing much dancing these days, and I probably should work on that. It feels somewhat counterintuitive in these dark days to engage in pleasurable activities. And yet, we also know that creativity, art, music, personal expressions of all sorts are a vital, life-affirming part of the resistance. I appreciate the reminder, as I appreciate the opportunity to gather together with all of us here today in this place made holy by our presence, to pause, to reflect, to recognize, to include, and to be included, and to do it with love. Welcome.
Well, the right hates the left, and the left hates the right. If you want to speak your mind, you gotta stand up and fight. But most of us are in the same boat, and the rain's falling down from above. We'll still find a common ground if we do it with love. Do it with love. Do it with love. You can soar like a hawk, but you can still coo like a dove. It doesn't matter who's right or wrong, or it don't matter who's in charge. We'll still find our common ground if we do it with love. And love doesn't mean that you never have to say you're sorry. Oh, and love doesn't mean that you're never gonna mess up. Well, the cap on his head said all I needed to know. But when my car got stuck in the mud, he was the one with the tow. Yeah, there's always more to the picture than makes it into the frame. If you do it with love, you're gonna have to let go of blame. Do it with love. Do it with love. This ain't the kind of war we're gonna win dropping bombs from above. Your neighbor is your neighbor, and you're gonna get stuck in the mud. We're all in this together, let's do it with love. If you wanna reach out for my hands, I'll take off the gloves. We'll do it with love.
Thank you, Tom. Tom's out there in Zoom land, hopefully acting as Zoom host, and he'll be joining us live later in the service. So most Sundays, today included, we have an opportunity during our service to pause for a brief time, to join in a collective ritual of acknowledging our joys and our sorrows. It can be a helpful experience to search what is most pressing upon our psyches and lift it up to the light of community caring. Whether joys or sorrows or both, we all carry, sometimes buried deep within, things that want to be noticed, need to be acknowledged. At this past Thursday evening's beautiful service dedicated solely to joys and sorrows, Sophia, which happens once a month actually, and is amazing reset for your week. Sophia read from the Lebanese poet Khalil Gibran's book, The Poet. And I know I grew up saying Gibran, but it's actually Gibran. His words on joy and sorrow say, "Your joy is your sorrow unmasked, and the self same well from which your laughter rises was oftentimes filled with your tears." Friends, let us now visit that well together, knowing, as Khalil Gibran reminds us, that the deeper sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain. After a brief silence, Heather will play softly. And when the music starts, you may choose to come forward and select a stone to represent all that you hold, and then release it into the bowl of water, symbolizing both the loving container of our community and the ripples of caring that flow throughout the community and beyond. If you are Zoom, you may add a virtual stone by typing an O or a 0 into the chat bar, or you may briefly name there what it is that you are holding today. Whether or not you place a stone, as we participate together in this simple yet powerful ritual, may you feel yourself an essential part of this circle, caring and holding space for each other, perhaps praying in whatever way feels right to you. Allow the music to wash over you. Allow your breath to deepen, your shoulders to soften, your jaw unclench, your belly relax, and your heart to open to what needs to surface this morning. I've placed the final stones for all that remain in our hearts, perhaps too tender to be released just yet, with the reminder that each of us carries burdens and blessings, both seen and unseen, spoken and unspoken. May we feel ourselves held even as we hold each other. Our prayer this morning by Amy Johnson Your love rains down on us all. Loving Creator, beyond our understanding, yet closer than our breath, breathe into us your love so that we may love ourselves and others as you do. Help heal the fear, the hate, and judgment that wound so many. Help us know deeply and certainly that your love transcends all labels, all categories, all words. Your love is. Your love rains down on us all. Everyone is invited to your table. We each bring our whole and broken parts and come together in your love, which binds us and heals us all. Amen, Aho, Ashe, Amin, and blessed be. Please rise. The topic of inclusion is such a multifaceted and broad continuum of behaviors, perceptions, language, programs, policies, and even law. Today's tapestries are going to tap in to the more personal, everyday experiences from members of our community. I encourage you to consider how inclusion shows up in your everyday life. Have you been welcomed by a stranger or into a group, and has that created a sense of value and belonging? Have you noticed how the words chosen in conversation made a difference in how you felt included? Are you aware of your own inclusive or perhaps exclusive language? Do you notice when you or others encourage diverse voices to be fairly represented in discussions? Have you thought about how these inclusive experiences have had short and long-term impacts on your life? Our speakers today will be Jean Gilligan, Tom Wernig, and Lindsay Dunkel. In between each speaker, we will enjoy singing one verse of May I Be Filled with Loving Kindness, widening the circle of inclusion by singing May I, May you, may we, may all. Today, I encourage you to listen deeply. Perhaps allow your heart and mind to dance together ever so subtly as you reflect on these generous stories shared with you today. You may be surprised to receive a warm, vibrational, even transformative internal insight about inclusion in your own life. Jean Gilligan will be our first speaker. I met Jean outside of UUCM when the universe kept pinging me to join this program, no kidding, called Couch to 5K. I was definitely on the couch at that time, and I was definitely not into running. Jean and the other coaches were so welcoming and supportive, though. And shockingly, I became a runner and ran through some very difficult times with a lot more grace as a result in my life. So thank you, Jean.
So I'd like to share a story about how a chance encounter with a stranger early in my life and his welcoming invitation to train with him influenced my life trajectory. A little about me first, though.
Maybe we could turn Jean up a little bit. Thanks.
Sorry. So I was not into academics in school, but I used my time wisely in middle school by shooting hoops, pretending like I was playing for Cal Berkeley. In high school, I did a lot of partying, I ran track and cross country, and I was introduced to writing in Miss Gravel's senior English class. After graduation, I didn't really have a need to go to college, so I went in the Army for 3 years, spent 2 years in Germany. After the Army, I moved to Oakland, and I worked for Sears Roebuck selling sporting goods. For some strange reason, one day I decided I should go for a run around Lake Merritt. So I started out, I got about halfway around, and I was exhausted. I was looking down at the trail, watching my feet, and all of a sudden this runner came at me, and I said, "Oh, sorry," and we both jumped out of the way. So I fortunately finished the run, got back to my start, and "Oh, sorry" was there. And so we started talking, and he shared that he ran with the Alameda Track Club, and wanted to know if I was interested in joining. He also said that I train every morning at 4. So would you like to join me? And I said yes to both questions. His name was Bill Bachrach. He was a Yale graduate, law school graduate, was living and working in California in insurance while he was studying to pass the bar. And he would later go on and open a law practice in Oakland. But I was most impressed with his story of his gold medal winning the 10,000 meters in the 1961 Jewish Maccabee Olympic Games. I just thought that's it, I'm running with him. Over the next several years, training with Bill, my running improved, and I found myself sharing my running knowledge with my teammates at Alameda Track Club. Maybe I should be a coach. Now I had a need to go to college. I graduated from Merritt Junior College in Chico State, but while at Chico, I discovered my love for working with special needs children. And I enrolled at San Francisco State, earned a master's in exceptional children and multiple teaching credentials. I taught special ed students at a variety of levels for 30 years, and I coached cross country at Nevada Union High School for 13 years. I'm currently coaching an adult run group called Gilligan's Hilligans. And there's a reason for the Hilligans. I don't know if I have time to go into it. We are a very, very informal group. Basically runners and walkers. We meet 3 days a week, but it's kind of your call. We started about 10 years ago. As Elizabeth said, I was helping to coach runners who were basically new runners, couch to 5K, we call them, to get started on their journey. Many have gone on to run multiple half marathons. Last year, we staged our first Hilligans 100 relay for females ages 6 to 90, 6 years to 90. And the idea was that each person walked or ran 1 mile on the track at Nevada Union High School. So women of all ages and abilities were invited to participate. We raised $5,000 for Community Beyond Violence, which I think is incredible. And we raised $1,000 for Bright Futures for Youth. Community Beyond Violence was especially meaningful to me since I have a daughter who was a victim of domestic violence. We also use the relay to honor women in track and field. We set up a special area with photos and dialogue about women in our community and in the world who have made contributions in track and field. As I look back, I realize how Bill's generous inclusion of me in his running world was the biggest influence on my life journey. Thanks to him, I had a need to go on to college, become a special education teacher and a running coach. These life experiences have taught me that inviting and encouraging others can build self-esteem, create a purpose, and build important support systems in each other's lives. Thanks, Bill.
May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be whole.
I hope everybody can see me.
Yes.
And hear me, apparently. Yeah, wonderful. Hi, I'm Tom Warnig, and I'm going to read this. Inclusion is a loaded term these days. It seems that we can no longer take for granted a shared vision that we all benefit when all are included. In any case, these are the times we live in. Needless to say, I believe we need to vigorously oppose this trend. But I was asked to speak about how inclusion has affected me personally in my life. And I was a little reluctant to speak on this topic because on the surface, I have every advantage for inclusion. However, I accepted the challenge because I feel I have a story to tell. And let me go back a ways. I always felt excluded in grade school. I thought it was because I refused to play the game, so to speak. I didn't listen to the right music or wear the right clothes or hairstyle. I didn't use the proper lingo. But there were some things about me that were beyond my control. The fact is, I was just different. I was shy, awkward, and bookish. I wore glasses, and my father spoke with an accent. In the end, I did find community in high school. There were three of us. Um, and we used to hang out at the cafeteria together. We go to each other's houses on weekends, hang out at 7-Eleven begging people to buy beer for us, play little Dungeons and Dragons. John Brown and Steve Fry, their actual names, were intellectual snobs, and they thought they were too good for everyone, including me. So my presence was tolerated at best. But my senior year, my parents divorced, and my mom moved the family, the children and her, to Madison, Wisconsin from DC. And then I had no friends at all. And that was pretty rough for my senior year. My only dream was to get out of Dodge. And so the day after graduation, I moved back to DC and lived with my father, who at this point was remarried and was living with his wife and a 13-year-old stepdaughter. My father was Hungarian by birth and also an outsider like myself in a lot of ways. He had about as much social skills as I did, and we lived in a wary parallel existence. Then while he was out of town, I took a bottle of prescription pills that I had found in a trash can, hoping to end it all. And I immediately had a change of heart. And as I felt myself losing consciousness, I called someone up and they rushed me to the hospital where they pumped my stomach and saved my life. My father got the bill through his insurance and promptly kicked me out of the house. Apparently, I was a bad influence on the stepdaughter. So I packed a bag and drove away in my Volkswagen Beetle with no place to go. I parked at the local neighborhood pool and I went to sleep. The next day, the car wouldn't start. And then Eddie walked by. Eddie was a fellow outcast. I knew him from a soccer team we'd been on together years before, and we had never kept in touch. He was tall and lanky and goofy. His sole strategy for socializing was telling sophomoric jokes and then laughing at them. No one else laughed except at Eddie, but he was unflappable in his good nature, and he was never unkind to anybody. And that day he saved my life. He saw me living in my car, and he invited me to come home and meet his family. And they embraced me without hesitation. I sometimes try to imagine where I would be today if my friend Eddie, really little more than an acquaintance, hadn't stumbled upon me in my broken down Volkswagen at the public pool. I cannot overemphasize the effect it's had on my life. Eddie took me home and his parents instantly embraced me. The whole family did. It was a big Catholic family, the O'Donnells, and Ray, the mom, spoke with a thick Southern drawl. They had a slew of children living in this modest house, 4 of their own children plus 2 adopted brothers. And there was an adopted older sister who had already moved out. Edward, the father, was a social worker, Ray, a homemaker. They also had a grandfather living in the house, Edward's dad, who was disabled, spoke with an Irish accent, and liked a wee bit of drink, if you know what I mean. And I was absorbed into this mix without discussion. I slept on the couch in the basement. And that first morning at the O'Donnells, it was a Sunday, I was awakened to a cacophony of voices from upstairs. I had never experienced a house full of relatives. They were buzzing around the kitchen, preparing food and getting ready for church. It was a revelation. I felt a warm glow, and instantly I was sold on communal living. And I ended up staying at the O'Donnell's for almost a year, during which time I worked in a restaurant and saved up money, enough money to buy a slightly better Volkswagen Beetle and put a down payment on an apartment. That year taught me to trust people. Until that point, mistrust was all I knew. People, I thought, only did for you when you did for them first, or if it was to their advantage. The O'Donnells fed me, they drove me around, they kept track of me, they included me in their family 100% to no discernible advantage. Why did they do this? One answer, I believe that actually religion brought out their better nature. And don't get me wrong, I'm of the camp that feels religion has possibly done more harm than good historically, except for this. Religious education, broadly speaking, can awaken us our better nature. Or so I believe. If applied properly, it restores us to a childlike innocence. Children do not judge based on religion, color, national origin, disabilities, or any of the rest. Children, toddlers, they accept, they're inclusive. Bigotry is learned. Religion, at its best, helps us unlearn it. That's why I was giddy recently when Bishop Marion Edgar Buddy read Trump and Vance the Riot Act at their inauguration. And if you haven't seen that, I recommend you look it up. She used her one shot at a global audience to remind the faithful what Jesus actually taught. And in doing so, she spoke for the foreigner, the disabled, the non-sexually conforming, the outsiders of all sorts. And I was overjoyed by her message and her audacity. But what about other churches, other church leaders? It remains to be seen how church leaders will deal with exclusionism in our time. How wide will individual congregations hold the door open? What stand will different denominations take? Who will they include? While I've been in Madison, I've been taking my mom to her Methodist church every other Sunday. And even though the Methodists, at least in the founder of the Methodist Church, John Wesley, called slavery the sum of all villainies. However, the Methodist Church has subsequently was divided on the issue of slavery leading up to the Civil War. And I'm here to tell you today that the Reverend Hong at the Methodist Church we're attending shies away from any contemporary issues. There's not a whisper about trans rights, immigrant rights, water protection, or any of the rest, which is why I don't love that church. I do, however, love the Unitarian Universalists. On alternating weeks, I drag my mom to one of the 3 UU churches in the area, and of course, they stand up for inclusion. And I am blessed with the confidence that this congregation, our congregation, Unitarian Universalist Community of the Mountains of Grass Valley, California, and available to anybody anywhere in the world via the World Wide Web, will always be emphatic in standing up for those who are being marginalized, as it should be and must be. There are so many knives being thrown in so many directions, it's hard to know what our focus should be. But for me, it comes down to this: compassion, inclusion, acceptance, and love. These are the things that will see us through. My experience has taught me this invaluable lesson: inclusion saves lives. It saved mine. Thank you. Me take the spotlight off me.
May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be
In December of 2024, I had the joy at the opportunity of becoming the director of what we call Racial Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, or READY, at First Five Sacramento, where I work. As I contemplate my journey to that point, I realize it probably all began in my freshman year of college, when my roommate, Michelle, who is a Black woman, received back her first essay that she had written in freshman English. And it had a note on it asking her to see the professor. So she went to meet with the professor, who accused her of plagiarism because the paper was too good for a Black woman from a marginalized community. It was a shock to me. And I think that began my trajectory of understanding the inherent privileges that I had as a cisgender, heterosexual white woman, and of having a chance to understand very viscerally what racism could do. So one of the questions that I've been asked multiple times, having taken over as the READY director, is Alejandra going to help you with that? Naming one of my colleagues of color. It's an interesting question. Because I have come to understand that anti-racism work is work for white people to do. That is our lift. The work that I do, First Five, is an agency that takes tobacco tax and acts as a funding agency, so funnels the money to the community to support children 0 to 5 and their families. And First Five Sacramento has long been engaged in racial equity work because there are data that show that particularly African American children 0 to 5 have incredible disparities in their health and well-being in Sacramento County, as all over this country. They have higher rates of infant sleep-related deaths. They have higher rates of low birth weight. They have higher rates of prematurity. They have higher rates of childhood injuries, higher rates of maternal perinatal death, of poverty, of food insecurity. And the good news is we have data that also shows that focused programs are closing those disparities. Programs focused on cultural responsiveness, on helping families navigate these systems where racism is baked in so that they get the care that they need. Lately, we've been working on a program called Participatory Grant-Making Program. And this is super exciting work. We have always acted as a funder in a very top-down way. So we have a community advisory committee, but the decisions about funding have always been in the hands of a commission that oversees First Five. With our participatory grant-making program, we've taken $4 million, and we're in the process of gathering a committee of people from the community who will decide how that money should be used, will decide how the request for the money will happen, and will decide where the money goes. Not empowerment, co-powerment, because empowerment implies that it's top down. So we're trying to move away from that. So last week, we were having a conversation about what language we use to talk about this, because as you can guess, we're a little bit nervous. right? We are doing DEI work, and it's state money, so it's safe, but people are empowered by our leader-in-chief to go after programs that are doing this work. So we began to say, well, we'll say that we'll talk about under-resourced communities. We'll talk about underserviced communities. We'll take out the language about anti-racism. We'll take out the language about Black, Indigenous, people of color communities. And then we paused. And we realized that what we were doing was anticipatory compliance, right? No one was coming after us yet. We needed to be bold. It says right in our strategic plan that racial equity is one of our 5 priorities. So we changed gears, and we talked, of course, with County Council, as one does. And we realized that we wanted to put our stake in the ground and do the work that we know, that we have the data that show make a difference. And so that is where we stand now. And I am so grateful to be able to do this work every day, and particularly in the current climate.
May all be filled with loving kindness. May all be well. May all be filled with loving kindness. May all be well. May all be peaceful and at ease. May all be well.
Fast forward. When I first started coming to UUCM around 20 years ago, good Lord, responsive readings were a part of almost every service. There's a whole section in the back of the gray hymnals that used to be on the seats, but the back of the gray hymnal is dedicated to these passages on a variety of topics, but all with a similar format. That is a call and response type litany, where one voice speaks a line, which is then followed by a collective response from the congregation. Now, maybe it's the latent theater major in me, or perhaps it's owing to my fascination with and personal lack of Catholic culture, indoctrination. But I realized that I really like a good responsive reading. I also learned that there are lots of UUs who don't. What a great example of our UU-ness, right? That what for some is a favorite might be actually repulsive to someone else. And that here we don't strive for uniformity, but we rather leave room for diversity. Welcome it, even. So, in the spirit of the theme of inclusion, and because surely I can't be the only one who likes them, I'd like for us to do a responsive reading now. Like I said, it's been a while since we've had one, I believe, and if you aren't familiar or you don't remember how it's supposed to go, or you've actively blocked the whole idea from your mind, I'll remind you, it's simple. I'll read a line, and Elizabeth, will you join me? And you can read the voice with the response. So I'll read, and Elizabeth and you can, and it'll be on the screen, can respond to what I say. Responsive reading. All right? Okay, here we go. There should be a slide that, no, that. Dang it. It's okay. I have to say, we have, this sounds really dramatic, but half of our AV team didn't show up today. That means one person. So we had kind of a scramble in there. That's what we needed, that responsive reading. Okay, here we go. You don't like responsive readings. We don't like responsive readings. Responsive reading runs contrary to everything you believe in as a Unitarian Universalist. Because instead of formulating your own thoughts and opinions in your own unique way, you simply repeat words that I have chosen for you. Like a store-bought greeting card, responsive reading sap us of the ability to choose words, expressions that we ourselves would have chosen. Look, I can make you moo like a cow. Moo. Or bleat like a sheep. Ah. Repeat after me. I will never, ever mindlessly repeat words that someone else has chosen for me. Slide, 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 slide. Oh, dang it. Back, 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 back. Okay, there we go. I will never, ever mindlessly repeat words that someone else has chosen for me. And I will always take charge of my thoughts by formulating them in my own unique way. And I will always take charge of my thoughts by formulating them in my own unique way. Oh my goodness, thank you for that. It's so important to remember to laugh, especially at ourselves, and especially when everything, gosh, it just feels so serious and so ominous and so not funny. So thank you. But since we are all now primed for a responsive reading, we went ahead and prepared another. You're all ready now. And we think it's a good one. And with the single response line that speaks to the core of our values and especially to the ideal of inclusion. No one is outside the circle of love. We know that hurt moves through the world, perpetuated by action, inaction, and indifference. Our values call us to live in the reality of the heartbreak of our world, remembering that no one is outside the circle of love. We who are Unitarian Universalists not only affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, we also affirm the inherent wholeness of every being, despite apparent brokenness. No one is outside the circle of love. We know that things break or break down, promises, friendship, sobriety, hope, communication. This breaking happens because our human hearts and our very institutions are frail and imperfect. We make mistakes. Life is messy. No one is outside the circle of love. With compassion as our guide, we seek the well-being of all people. We seek to dismantle systems of oppression that undermine our collective humanity. We believe that we're here to guide one another toward love. No one is outside the circle of love. No matter how fractured we are, or once were, we can make whole people of ourselves. We are whole at our core because of the great, unnameable, sometimes inconceivable love in which we live. No one is outside the circle of love. We give to remind ourselves how many gifts we have to offer to our community. We give to remember that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. Each month, we include a local nonprofit to share the offerings from our community. This month, Community Beyond Violence will receive 50% of our donations. The mission of Community Beyond Violence is to heal the trauma of sexual assault and domestic violence by providing crisis intervention, safety, advocacy, and education to survivors in our community. Our screens will show other ways to give. Will the greeters please come forward to accept this morning's offerings? We dedicate these gifts to the work of our congregation, serving human wholeness, caring for our planet, upholding religious freedom, welcoming the stranger, loving one another. Thank you. And thank you, Beth, and welcome to the worship team. So many people to thank today, and not everyone made it onto the slide. I want to thank Heather Grove for stepping in as our accompanist. Thank you so much, Heather. It's wonderful to have you. I hope we hear more from you. And Catherine and Taylor, thank you so much for coming in and stepping in. Heather was a little uncertain about her voice this morning, so as always, you guys answered the call, or as usual, I should say, answered the call. Thank you so much. Also, thank you back there, our AV team. Paul, one half, came in at last minute notice and showed up. So thank you so much, Paul, for taking time out. And Andy, of course, thank you so much for shuffling it all around and making it happen. Thank you so much to Jean for reading our land acknowledgement and offering up your tapestry. Also to Tom online as our chat host and music offering, and then your awesome tapestry. Thank you, Tom. Lindsay, last minute flew in, and wow, what What a whirlwind, and that was off the cuff, folks, after a night of travel, a week of travel. So thank you so much, Lindsay. Gosh, I'm sure I've missed, the greeters, and also the refreshment team, George Dunstan's, our lay pastoral care, Kids Connection, so much, right? Refreshments, there's a bunch of people out there. Yeah, so thank you. If I've missed your name, know that you are thanked, loved, and appreciated. Thank you all for being here. A couple of announcements. Monday, tomorrow, the office is closed for President's Day. Also tomorrow at 7, the Citizens Climate Lobby is meeting. Spirituality Sharing Circle is next Saturday. Starting on February 25th, there's some UU history sessions, and you can choose either Thursday evenings or Tuesday evenings, Thursday afternoons, and I think you can mix and match too. Anyway, it's online and on Zoom, and cottage meetings coming up. Sundays in March. There's more information in the foyer, and actually everything's on our website, and it's a great website. It's really well curated and easy to move around, so check it out, especially if you haven't been there in a while or if you're new. Okay, so I think we're ready for our closing song, and this is "We Shall Be Known" by Mom Hughes. We'll sing it through twice, and please stand up.
Shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we strive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and weep the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time to lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
It's all okay. Please remain standing if you are able. And before I read the closing words, maybe it is time now that we revisit our old pre-COVID way of ending our service. Just visit it, see what it feels like, knowing that each of us has different degrees of comfort around touching. Please know that there are options on how we can do this in an inclusive way that feels right for everyone. So let's link up, making sure that everyone who wishes to be is connected to others in some way. Keep in mind that your neighbor's needs around touching may differ from yours, so a quick check-in is important. Some might hold hands or link elbows or put hands on shoulders or on their backs. If you don't want to be touched at all, yeah, and reach across aisles, that's always a good symbol. If you don't want to be touched at all, just cross your hands in front of your body as a signal for that, for those around you, that you are holding yourself in this moment and that they can reach around you. Are we all connected? Wow. That's been a long time. Wonderful. And now our closing words, and they're brief, I promise. Outwitted by Edwin Markham. He drew a circle that shut me out. Heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took him in. And though we extinguish our chalice in preparation to return to our places in the wider world, we know that we will carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. If you're in the building, please join us for refreshments down the hall, and everyone else, we'll see you next Sunday. What circle? Thank you.
Now is the time to do it.